one of the questions that we asked was just how much money is the half shekel? How much does it mean in practical terms? And so I put on the source sheet a table of Talmudic money quantities just to give a sense of this. A shekel is generally thought of as a 14-gram silver coin, and the weight can go up and down somewhat, maybe from 11 to 17 grams, but just for the purpose of this table, I want to hold on to the 14 grams because it relates to other measures we're going to look at. So the half shekel, obviously, if the shekel is 14, the half shekel will be 7 grams. And a bit later in the Mishnah, we're going to come across the ma'ah. Now, a ma'ah is 0.7 of a gram. So effectively, there are going to be 10 ma'ahs in a half shekel. And we're going to see that something like an exchange fee seems to be about a ma'ah. So that's about 10% of the value of the half shekel. Now, a seller is 2 shekel, and a seller is a very common unit of money in the kind of the Mishnah. And for example, in Bava Metzia, on page 65a, the Talmud talks about the annual rent on a courtyard as being 10 seller. So in other words, 20 shekel. So a half shekel contribution is, quite a significant contribution when measured against, say, a monthly rent on a courtyard of just under 2 shekels. And a typical salary, and this is browsing the internet, so I don't have a source for this. I can't come back to a page in the Talmud, but a typical salary is a typical monthly salary seems to be about 2 shekel. So again, a half a shekel contribution, if that's about a week's wages, that's quite a significant contribution. So it's not surprising that some people didn't get out of it, and the question as to who's liable is very real. And the Mishnah, picking up the Mishnah in the first chapter, in Mishnah number 5, we have Afal Pishe Amru Ein Mamashkenim Nashim Vavadim Uktanim, even though they don't take pledges from women or slaves or minors, and that is effectively saying women and slaves and minors are not liable to pay. Im shaklu mukablim miyadam. If they decide to pay, it's accepted for them. Effectively, they're eligible to pay, and if they pay, the money goes into community funds and then can be drawn out to pay for offerings. But there's a but. Hanochri v'hakuti sheshaklu ein makablin miyadam. The non-Jew, well, I think the non-Jew is obvious. The Kutiyas are mentioned in 2 Kings. The king of this is after the Assyrians overran the northern kingdom. The Assyrians used to do population transfer. So they take people out of one country and put them into another after they conquered it. And 2 Kings says, Vayavemelech Ashur mi Bavel umikuta. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon and from Kuta. These are the Kutim. And there's an idea in the Gemara that they converted to Jews, but they were not completely accepted. They were attacked. I mean, the biblical text says they were attacked by lions and they got very scared. And the Talmud thinks they converted out of fear rather than out of love. And that's why they weren't completely accepted. But so this Mishnah clearly thinks that a Kuti is not Jewish. This Mishnah clearly is not recognizing the conversion of a Kuti, because it says, Hanochrivi Kuti, a non-Jew or a Kutian, Sheshaklu, who paid the shekel, is not accepted. We don't accept it from them. And we only accept very limited. Well, we'll see as the Mishnah develops what kind of gifts can be accepted for non-Jews, but certainly not gifts for the mainstream sacrificial offerings. In fact, not for most sacrificial offerings. And so the Mishnah continues, V'ein mekablin miyadan k'nei zavenu k'nei zavot v'kinei yoldot v'chatot v'ashamot ein mekablin miyadan. And we don't accept from them bird offerings of zavin or of zavot. So if you have an emission, you have to bring 2 turtle doves. when you become clean. Or women after childbirth, they bring 2 turtle doves. So we don't accept those offerings from them, or sin offerings or guilt offerings. And the Mishnah brings a general rule. Zeh haklal. Kol she nidar venidav. Anything which can be made as a vow offering or a free will offering. So you can say, for example, I promise to give such and such an offering to the temple. Anything that we can just make freely as a promise, makablim miyadan, we can take that from anybody. Anybody can just freely bring a sacrifice to the temple of their own accord. And there are famous stories about, there's a famous story about a Roman emperor who sends a sacrifice to the temple in Jerusalem on his behalf. So a free will sacrifice can be accepted from anybody. But kol she'ein nidar venidav ein mekablin miyadam. If there anything other than a free will offering, we don't take. V'chein hamufurash al yidei Ezra, and this is actually, there's a verse in Ezra. There's a verse in Ezra which documents this, and Ezra says, "Lo lachem." He says, "Lo lachem ve'lo lachem ve'lanu livnot beit ha'Elohim." You've got nothing to do with us to build a house unto our God, i.e., we're going to take on the construction cost of building the temple. Ezra's writing at the time of the return, so this must be 537 or so before the Common Era. So he's coming back from Babylon to Jerusalem, and he's finding chaos, by the way. There's chaos, there's disorder, there's a lack of social organization. Ezra's job is to create some kind of social stability. And clearly, one of the ways he's doing this is to clarify that Jews are responsible for running the temple, and that non-Jews can participate on a voluntary basis, but they don't provide the core offerings. Now, if we've clarified now who is liable for the shekel, what about the kalbon? The kalbon is an additional fee. The elu shechayavin b'kalbon. The following are liable for the kalbon. And you'll see this is the same list who are liable for the shekel by and large. Levi'im v'Yisraelim v'gerim v'avadim v'shucharim. All these people, Levites and Israelites and converts and freed slaves, are all liable for the kalbon. Aval lo kohanim v'nashim v'avadim v'kutanim. No, but not priests or women or slaves or minors. So you'll see, looking at these categories, that the people that are obligated in the shekel are obligated in the kalbon, and people who pay shekel voluntarily are actually not obligated in the kalbon. What is this kalbon? Well, the commentators disagree, actually, but it seems to be some kind of additional fee on top of the half shekel. And the Rambam says it's a money exchange fee. So of course there's a short, if everyone wants to contribute a half shekel, there's going to be a shortage of half shekels. You take along a whole shekel to a money changer, he's not going to give you 2 half shekels unless you give him essentially a little bit more, right? This is not like it's not like a modern cash economy where all kinds of coins are legal tender and can be exchanged at their face value. If there's a shortage of half shekels, then 2 half shekels will change hands for slightly more than a whole shekel. In other words, there's a spread in it which the money lender makes. And this seems to be what the kalbon is. And so the Mishnah then goes on to specify. Shokel al yedei kohen, al yedei isha, al yedei eved, al yedei katan patur. So if someone pays the shekel on behalf of a priest or a woman or a slave or a minor, he's exempt. That means exempt from the kalbon. He doesn't have to pay the kalbon. Ve'im shekal al yado or al yado ve'al yad havero chayav b'kalbon echad. If a person pays the shekel on his own behalf and on behalf of his fellow, so he's liable for 1 kalbon. although Rabbi Meir says 2. And if he gave a seller and received a shekel in change, he's going to pay 2 kalbons. And again, this reinforces the idea of the Rambam that this kalbon is some kind of exchange fee. If he gives a different kind of coin instead of the half shekel, then he's going to pay a fee on top of that. And the Mishnah then continues, Hashokel yadei ani, someone who pays the shekel on behalf of a poor man, v'al yadei shechino, v'al yadei ben iro patur, someone who pays, pays voluntarily. So someone who helps out a poor guy by paying his half shekel. So you might do that for a poor man or a neighbor or someone in your town. You're exempt from kalbon. V'im hilvam chayav. If he lent to them, he's liable. Why is that? Well, at that point, of course, the temple is really getting 2 half shekels. He's getting one from the neighbor or the townsman and one from the main payer. In other words, A has lent B the half shekel to bring to the temple, and A, of course, brings both half shekels along, so he's liable for the kalbon on the extra half shekel. Ha'achim ve'hashutafim, and the text of this Mishnah is a little bit, is open to question, but the version I brought here is the version from Kaufman, as usual. We normally stick to Kaufman if we can. Ha'achin ve'hashutafim, brothers and partners, shechayavin b'kalbon, who are obligated for kalbon, p'turim mimaser behema, are exempt from the tithe of beasts. And it works the other way too. Shechayavin b'maser behema p'turim min hakalbon. When they're liable to the tithe of beasts, they're exempt from the kalbon, from the surcharge. And now we're going to define the surcharge. V'chama hu kalbon ma'a kesef. It's a ma'a of kesef. That is the 0.7 grams that we looked at when we began looking at our table, when we started talking right at the beginning of this session. Divrei Rabbi Meir, v'chachamim omrim chetzi. Actually, this is the words of Rabbi Meir, but the chachamim say half. So the chachamim, I think, will have just half. Sorry, I've just lost this. The chachamim will have half.